This is everything I wish I knew before buying my first home. And this has been by far the highest requested video from you guys. So just know when you guys make video requests, I actually listen. So here we go. Now I bought my first home at the end of 2006, which happened to be at the peak of the market right before the biggest real estate crash in our country's history. So I'm someone that dealt with an inflated housing market and a real estate crash all within the first year of home ownership. And obviously that caused me to learn a lot at such a young age, mainly from the mistakes I made, along with some of the other things I wish I knew ahead of time. So in this video, I'm going to give you everything I didn't know, along with a few additional tips that are definitely relevant in today's marketplace. So I highly recommend you stay to the end of the video and even save it so that you can come back and reference it at a later time. Now, the first thing you need to understand is the true cost of home ownership. To make it as easy as possible, I'm going to separate it into two different categories. You have the upfront cost and you have the ongoing cost. The first upfront cost you want to consider is strictly your down payment. This is the amount of money that you need to pay up front as a percentage of the total purchase price of the home. And the typical down payment is usually somewhere from 3 to 20% of the total value. But it can vary depending on the type of loan that you're getting and your credit score. So here's an example of what that looks like. Now let's say you're buying a home that's worth $300,000. A 3% down would only be $9,000 up front. But 20% down would be $60,000 up front. So you can see how impactful a down payment is to your financial situation. And just a down payment alone can let you know clearly which homes to not even waste your time looking at. Now, the next thing you want to consider are your closing costs. Hands down, this is one of the most commonly overlooked expenses associated with purchasing a home. These are the costs that are connected with finalizing the sale of the property. And they include things like the appraiser's fee, title insurance, and attorney fees. And the cost can vary depending on where you live and the specific property you're buying. But it's safe to expect the cost to be somewhere from around 2% to 6% of the actual loan amount. So let's use that same example of a property that's worth $300,000. And we're going to assume that you make a down payment of 20% that comes out to $60,000. So what that means is that you're actually only getting a loan for the $240,000 that's remaining. And that $240,000 is what your closing cost is based off of. So your estimated closing cost could be anywhere from $4,800 at 2% on the low end up to $14,400 at 6% on the high end. And regardless if it's on the high end or the low end, you definitely don't want to get surprised with any additional out-of-pocket cost. So make sure you include the worst case scenario of the closing costs in your home buying budget. Because honestly, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Now, there are situations where your closing costs can actually be added to your mortgage, but that depends on the type of loan that you're getting and the lender's policies. Because some lenders will allow you to do it, but then other lenders will say, we need that money up front. So make sure that's something that you definitely ask about. And another way, which is the most ideal scenario, is you ask the seller to actually pay for the closing costs for you. This is actually called seller concessions, and it's common in the negotiation process. The seller may agree to pay some, or in some cases, all of the closing costs just to make the sale. Because you have to remember, the seller wants to sell the house the same way you want to buy the house. So you can definitely use that to your advantage, especially if the house has been on the market for a while, or you can see that they've made one or more price decreases on the price of the home. That can help give you a non-official perspective of how desperate they are to get the house sold. And the final upfront cost is your cash reserve, which technically isn't a cost, but it's required to have and you can't use it, so we might as well treat it as a cost. Cash reserves are the assets that you have easy access to if you ever needed help covering your mortgage. Because when buying a home, lenders want to see that you have the financial stability to make your mortgage payments even if something unexpected arises. Your cash reserve provides a cushion of security for the lender, and it helps demonstrate that you're a responsible borrower. Additionally, having a cash reserve can help you get a better interest rate on your mortgage. The amount of cash reserve required is dependent on the type of loan that you're getting and the lender's requirements. However, as a general rule, most lenders want to see about 3 to 6 months of your monthly mortgage payments in cash reserve. Here's a chart you can screenshot. This chart gives you a good idea of how much money you need to have as a cash reserve based on your loan type. Typically, that money just stays in your bank account, so there are no specific type of accounts you have to create. Now, when it comes to ongoing costs, the first and most obvious one to consider are your monthly mortgage payments. This is the amount of money you have to pay every single month to repay the loan you took out to buy the home. Your mortgage payment will include the principal and the interest in most cases. And it's extremely important to factor in that new monthly mortgage into your new budget. The next cost to consider are your property taxes. Property taxes are taxes that are levied on your property by the government. And typically they'll have to be paid on a semi-annual or annual basis. And the amount that you'll have to pay would depend on the value of your home and the local tax rate. However, it's extremely important to understand that if the value of the homes in your area increases, your city or county can assess your home at a higher value, which means you'll pay more in property taxes. Now, it's a great thing for your property value to increase, but along with that does come an unstable tax payment. And usually that means a higher tax payment. Another cost you may run into are homeowner association fees, more commonly referred to as the HOA. So definitely find out if the home you're purchasing has an HOA. The HOA is a group that manages and maintains common areas in your neighborhood, such as parks, playgrounds, and swimming pools. These fees can vary widely depending on the location of the property and the amenities of your community. But just know it can add up to hundreds of dollars on an annual basis. And then we have the homeowner insurance. This is the insurance that protects your home and your property from loss or damage. It's typically required by lenders as a condition of your mortgage. And the cost of this will depend on the value of your home and the level of coverage that you choose. And in some cases, you can have your homeowner insurance actually included into your monthly mortgage payment. Now, another cost to consider is your mortgage insurance, which is totally different from your homeowner insurance. This type of insurance actually protects the lender in case you ever defaulted on your loan. This is typically required when you have a down payment that's less than 20% and you're using a conventional loan. But it's also included in all FHA loans regardless of the down payment amount. And the cost of mortgage insurance depends on the type of loan that you have and also your credit score. And lastly, we have the cost of home maintenance, repairs, and utilities. As a homeowner, you are now responsible for maintaining and repairing your own home. So you're no longer going to be able to call someone and they show up and fix whatever problem's going on. This can include things like painting, roofing, landscaping, and fixing appliances. And these repairs can definitely add up to thousands of dollars over time. And additionally, you're now responsible for all the utilities like electricity, gas, and even your water. And I'm sure I didn't cover everything, but that gives you an idea of the true cost of home ownership. Next is one you may not want to hear, and that's that being pre-qualified or even pre-approved does not mean you can afford that home. For starters, you definitely want to understand the differences between those two terms because to a non-experienced buyer, it all sounds the same. To start off, you must know that every lender handles mortgage approvals in a different way. You'll see the steps and even words involved actually change from lender to lender. Many lenders use the word pre-qualified and pre-approved interchangeably when it's actually two different things. Pre-qualification is the first step in your mortgage process. It's when a lender looks at your financial information and gives you an estimate of how much you'll be able to borrow. It's a quick and easy way to get a rough idea of how much they'll allow you to spend on a home. The pre-qualification is not binding at all, which just means it's not guaranteed that you'll get approved for a loan. Now, pre-approval is the next step in the mortgage process. It's when the lender actually verifies your financial information and gives you a more accurate number of how much they'll allow you to borrow. This involves submitting documentation like paycheck stubs, tax returns, and proof of assets. The lender will also review your credit report and your credit score to help determine your pre-approval rate. So it's definitely more of a reliable way to determine how much you can actually spend on a home. And it's typically required by real estate agents and sellers before they would even consider an offer on the property. So now that you understand the difference between being pre-qualified and being pre-approved, here's where the concerns come in. So it's recommended that your monthly mortgage payment be no more than 28% of your monthly gross income. And your gross income is just the amount that you actually have before taxes and any other deductions are removed. So if you have a gross monthly income of $10,000, your monthly mortgage payment should not be more than $2,800 a month. Now you have to understand that your real estate agent, although they're a good person, they only get compensated based on the value of the home that you buy. So they may provide you with different tricks and options and different things you can do to get you approved for more than the 28%. And I understand that real estate is expensive. So in some situations, you really don't have an option if you want to be a homeowner. But I just want you to be mindful of that ahead of time because buying too much house can cause you to be what's referred to as being house broke. That's just when you own a house, but it eats up so much of your income that every other area of your life is a financial struggle. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in that exact scenario right now. And when you're in a situation like that with no breathing room, you're one financial setback away from completely losing it all. And a financial setback doesn't always have to be as extreme as losing your job. It could be an injury or maybe some other personal situation causing you to need a temporary leave of absence from work or even a reduction of hours. Either way, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where one financial emergency can cause you to lose your home and all the money you put into it. Next, you want to learn the different mortgage options that are available to you. When it comes to buying a home, one of the most important decisions you will make is choosing the right mortgage. And there are many different types of loans that are available to you. And each of them have their own specific terms and different conditions. First, let's talk about fixed rate loans. Just as it states, these loans have a fixed interest rate that stays the same the entire length of the loan. This also means your monthly mortgage payment stays the same the entire time as well. So regardless of the changes in the interest rate market, this can provide a sense of predictability and stability. So as a byproduct, it makes it easier to budget for your monthly payments. On the other hand, adjustable rate loans, also known as ARMs, have an interest rate that can change over time. The interest rate is usually fixed for a certain period, which is known as the introductory period, and after which it'll adjust periodically based on the changes in the interest rate market. So this means that your monthly mortgage payment can actually change. So obviously these type of loans are definitely harder to budget for. And when it comes to an adjustable rate loan, always find out what is the worst case scenario when it comes to your monthly mortgage payment. That'll help you decide if that's even something you want to mess around with or not. Other type of loans that you'll have available are FHA loans, VA loans, and conventional loans. And each of these also have their own qualifications, interest rates, and different terms. So the main thing you want to do is make sure you understand the pros and the cons of all these different loans before you decide which one you want to move forward with. So once you've went through the different loan types available to you, along with the pros and cons, the next thing you want to do is shop around for different lenders. So many new home buyers do not know they can do this. It's important to shop around because different rates can vary from lender to lender. And even a small difference in the interest rate can save you thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. So obviously the only way you're going to be able to find out who has the best rates is to shop around. Another factor you want to look at when you're shopping around are the fees associated with the loan. Because again, different lenders have different fees, different closing costs, so you want to get the best scenario possible. And the last reason you want to shop around is because different lenders actually have different qualifications for their loans. Some lenders may be more lenient when it comes to your credit score or even your income. But at the same time, their competitor across the street might be 10 times more strict. So for obvious reasons, you definitely want to go with a lender that you know you're going to be approved with. So make sure to have a plan for comparing the fees and the rates for multiple lenders. This can include banks, credit unions, online lenders, and even mortgage brokers. And also don't forget to compare the terms and the conditions of those loans. Now the next thing is something that's hurting you without you even knowing, and that's feeling rushed during the home buying process. It's important to not feel rushed during the home buying process because it's a huge financial decision. Buying a home is likely the biggest financial purchase that you'll ever make in your life. So by taking your time, you can make sure you're making the right financial decision for your budget and your long-term goals. Because you have to understand, buying a house is a very complex process. And there are several steps involved, way more than I could even name in this video. So don't allow yourself to feel rushed by your friends, your family, or even the real estate agent. Take your time to make sure you are getting the best deal on your mortgage. And lastly, it's important not to rush into buying a home because sometimes it's a huge emotional decision. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of buying a new home, but it's important to remember that the home buying process can be stressful and emotional. So you definitely want to avoid making any impulsive decisions. Now, the next tip is something a lot of new home buyers are guilty of. You have to make sure you are not falling in love with all these homes you're looking at. And the reason you don't want to fall in love with these homes is because it can easily cloud your judgment. When you become emotionally attached to a property, it can become difficult to make an objective decision on whether that's the right home for you. So by keeping your emotions in check, you can be sure that you're making a sound financial decision strictly based on your needs and your budget. Try to look at the home buying process like you're doing some type of business deal. Because during a business deal, there's a lot more emphasis on do these numbers make sense or not. Another reason you don't want to fall in love with the property is because the home buying process is very competitive. In a hot market, you may find yourself in a bidding war for a property. And it's important to remember that just because you're emotionally attached to a property doesn't mean you should overpay for it. And try to keep in mind that there will be more options available to you. It's easy to get caught up thinking that this specific home is the only option available to you. But you don't want to put yourself in a position that because of this specific home, you are now missing out on other properties out there that are available to you that would be a better fit for you and your family. So I would advise you have some type of checklist ahead of time containing all the things you want your house to have, and list everything in order by priority. That will help give you a clear assessment on what's the best property for you. Now the next one could be considered a little controversial, and that may be why you don't hear it referenced too often. But hey, my main goal is for you to have the best buying experience possible. So with that being said, my next word of advice is that as a buyer, do not use the listing agent to represent you. It's important to understand that a real estate agent does have a fiduciary responsibility to their client, which just means they're legally required to act in the best interest of their client at all times. And they also have to disclose any information that can affect their client's decision to buy or sell any property. So when an agent represents both the buyer and the seller, it creates a conflict of interest, as the agent can't really fully represent the interests of both clients at the same time. Another important factor to consider is that the listing agent may not be the best fit for you as a buyer. The listing agent may be more experienced in marketing and selling property, whereas a buyer's agent is more experienced in helping a client find a property and purchase the property. So by using a separate buying agent, you can always assure that you are working with someone that has your best interests at heart the entire time. And you also know that they have experience in helping clients find homes and purchase homes. It's also important to understand that listing agents are actually working for the seller, not the buyer. They are responsible for getting the best price and the best terms for the seller, not the buyer. And even if the listing agent is able to negotiate a good deal for the buyer, it's important to remember that their main obligation is always to the seller. Also, when you do find an agent that works great for you, make sure you take advantage of that and ask a lot of questions. So many new buyers are afraid to ask questions throughout the process. So when you go about your day and a question comes to mind, or you read about something that concerns you, make sure you have some type of system for jotting that question down. That way you can make sure your questions get answered the second you get a chance to speak to your agent. So never trust your memory, because you will forget those questions when it's time for you to speak to your agent. The easiest and most simple thing you can do is just use the notes section of your cell phone, because in most cases people have their cell phone in some type of close proximity to where they're at. And you getting your questions answered will help relieve a lot of stress throughout the process. The next one is something that I personally think about all the time. And based on my personal goals, I would say this is the biggest mistake I made when buying my first home. And that's not knowing that I could have purchased a multifamily property as my first home. I was under the impression that your first property had to be some type of single family home. And that's far from the truth. Even if you go with an FHA loan, you can still get a 2, 3, and even a 4-unit property. So even if that's something that's not on your radar now, meaning you're not even thinking about rental property, I would advise you take the time to look into the pros and cons of buying a multifamily home versus buying a single family home as your first property. Learn how the rental income and the appreciation both work, along with how that can actually be the launching pad for more properties in the future. When you buy a multi-unit property, you're not just purchasing a place to live, you're also purchasing an investment. The rental income from the additional units can help offset your monthly mortgage payments and also provide an additional stream of income for you and your family. Next, you want to know the condition of your house and any potential issues. So another important step in the home buying process is getting a home inspection. A home inspection will give you a detailed report of the condition of the house. It'll also include any potential issues that definitely need to be addressed. And also make sure to review the property's title and legal documents. That way you'll know there's no outstanding liens or anything else that'll affect your property. So when it comes to the home inspection, one area you want to have at the top of the list is mold and termites. These are issues that can affect the health and the safety of the people in the property, as well as the structural integrity of the property. So when it comes to mold, make sure your inspector does a thorough check. Another thing you want to do if you can is to stop by and check the house on a rainy day. That way you can see if there's any issues that come up during wet weather. Other things you want to check for are things like sinkholes and also tree roots. Tree roots are one of the worst things that can happen to your plumbing system. So just know when the roots hit the pipe, the roots always win. So when you have your plumbing check, make sure the person does a sewer scope. That's just the process of them running an actual video camera directly through your pipes. So anything that's going on will be seen. Another thing you want to check is the sales history of the house you're buying. You want the previous owners to have owned that home for as long as possible. If you see that that house has had many buyers, but at the same time all those buyers sold the home within a year or two, that should definitely be something that raises a concern for you. Because there has to be something going on with the house that causes so many people to want to sell it so soon. home. And that may not be the case, but I'm not taking that chance. Another thing you can do is use your neighbors as an actual inspection. Tell them that you're a potential buyer and ask them about any issues that they may know of. And they could tell you about anything from disruptive neighbors to maybe HOA horror stories. But whatever it is, those are things you definitely want to know. You may even find out that that specific neighbor is somebody you don't even feel comfortable living next to. So up next is understanding the neighborhood of the house. It's important to consider the neighborhood and its proximity to different amenities when buying a house. And the amenities could be anything from grocery stores, restaurants, and even entertainment. Those are things that can greatly impact your daily life and your overall satisfaction of your new home. So by looking for a neighborhood that has a variety of these things within reach, you can be sure that you're finding a location that meets all of your needs. Another thing you want to consider are the surrounding school districts. If you have children or maybe you plan to have children, it's important to find a location that's near good schools. This can ensure that your child receives quality education and can also impact the resale value of your home. Another area you want to look at is public transportation. If you rely on public transportation to get around, it's important to find a neighborhood that's near either a bus or some type of train station. This can make your daily commute more convenient and also save you time and money. And lastly, when it comes to the neighborhood, you definitely want to look at the crime rate, because crime rates can vary from neighborhood to neighborhood. And by checking the crime rate, you can get a sense of how safe that neighborhood actually is. And the crime rate may be a deciding factor if you actually want to live there with your family or not. And there are several resources you can use to figure this out. Like you can go to the police website. There may be neighborhood watch groups, and real estate websites can also provide the information as well. Some neighborhoods may have a higher rate of property crime, while others may have a higher rate of violent crime, because the type of crime definitely does matter. So it's important to know the specific type of crime that may be happening in that area, as well as the overall crime rate, to help you make an informed decision on the overall safety of that neighborhood. Another thing you want to be aware of is the potential for a natural disaster in the area you're buying a home. Because it's obvious that you're going to have a different type of natural disaster if you're buying a home in California versus if you're buying a home in Florida. So getting a sense of that will help you understand the risk involved with buying a home in that area, along with your personal safety and the value of your home. And for that, there's also several online resources you can use. You can go to local government websites, different weather channels, and also real estate websites. And that'll give you a list of the potential hazards based on that area. For example, some areas may have earthquakes, while others have tornadoes, hurricanes, or even wildfires. So all of which puts your home at risk, so you definitely want to know the risks that are associated. Next, you want to be aware of the zoning laws. Zoning laws determine how the land that you own can be utilized. Now, just because you own it doesn't mean you can do whatever you want with it. So it's imperative to know what you can or can't do with a house before you buy the property. These laws can actually affect your ability to make changes to your home. For example, they may require that you have to get a permit before you do any changes to your house. So this can definitely add time and expense to any project that you have in mind. And there's also a chance that the project you want to do can actually get denied. Another unfortunate thing that zoning laws can do is prevent you from running any type of business from your actual property. Next, you want to keep in mind the cost and time of any renovation or any upgrades you want to do to that property. So before buying a property, you want to make sure you know everything that needs to be done and everything that you want to do to that property. And then you want to budget accordingly, because everything comes with a price tag. A good way of doing it is hire a professional inspector and have them give you a quote for how much everything would cost. And you also want to ask about how long they expect things to take, because some projects can be completed pretty quickly and others can take months. And trying to live in a home while it's being renovated is absolutely no fun. And based on the cost and the timeline you're given, can determine if you want to walk away from that property or not. If you do plan on moving forward and buying the property and do the renovations, just know everything is not going to go as planned. Your contractors may say one thing and they do the absolute opposite. You may even pop up at your house during work hours and find there's nobody there doing anything. I'm just trying to help you manage the expectations that you may deal with. Another thing that may happen is they may tell you that they've ran out of money because the job is way more expensive than they quoted you for. And that's a very unfortunate situation to be in. And those are just a few of the things that may come up with dealing with contractors. So just know you may go through multiple contractors until the job actually gets completed. But whoever's doing the job, make sure it's legally permitted through your city or your county. Because the last thing you want to do is pay for all that work to get done just for your city or your county to come and say it was all done out of compliance. And unfortunately, that can result in fines and them requiring you to demolish the project, which means all the money and time that you spent would be a complete waste. So save yourself some heartache and some time and have some type of system to make sure everything that's done in compliance. So there you have it, all the things that I wish I knew when I bought my first home. So I really hope this video helps you throughout your home buying process, and make sure you share with anyone that you know that's even thinking about buying a home. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more financial content, and I will see you in the next video.